بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Have you ever wondered why do we have to follow continuous economic growth, and why do we have inflation, recession cycles and business cycles all the time, just repeating every time since 1940s and even before that? Well, if you look at the statements of the biggest political economists since then, you will be actually shocked at what they said. So let's see together some of these statements. But before I move on to present the shocking statements of the most influential economists, I would like to start with one of the biggest acts of obscuring the real economics and truth that happened in history, followed by a description of the confusion that economists were experiencing. Joseph Schumpeter, an American political economist from Austrian roots, he was considered one of the most influential economists of the 20th century. He was the one who popularized the term creative destruction, while the issue is not with what he said, but what he canceled, the least of what can be described as his irrational conclusion. In his monumental work, History of Economic Analysis, Schumpeter discarded 500 years of Arabic Islamic contributions to economic thoughts when he claimed that there was a great gap from the Greeks to Thomas Aquinas. He literally coined the period with the term the Great Gap. In their 1980 annual report, the U.S. Joint Economic Committee wrote, "The past has been dominated by economists who focused almost exclusively on the demand side of the economy and who, as a result, were trapped into believing that there is an inevitable trade-off between unemployment and inflation." Now I will start with the names of those influential economists and their statements. Alfred Edward Carr served under President Carter and chaired the Civil Aeronautics Board. He said, "I'd love the automobile workers to be worse off. You may say that's inhumane. I'm putting it rather boldly, but I want to eliminate a situation in which certain protected workers in industries insulated from the competition can increase their wages much more rapidly than the average without regard to their merit or to what a free market would do, and in so doing exploit other workers." Keith Joseph. He's the key advisor to the British Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher. He said, "If we are to reduce poverty in this country and to raise our standard of living, we need more inequality than we have now." Really, I wonder how he could combine between reducing poverty and inequality. That's really strange. Was that really the reason for the increase in poverty around the globe? I wonder really. Charles L. Schultz, chairman of President Jimmy Carter's Council of Economic Advisors. He was advocating that economists should always use efficient policies, and he said, between quotation, "even when the result is significant income losses for particular groups, which it almost always is." Really, it's fine to accept such an argument if that really works for the good of the entire nation as a whole. But how did they determine these efficient policies, and how efficient are these policies? Karl Polanyi. He's an Austro-Hungarian political economist, economic historian, and sociologist, and economic anthropologist. In his book, The Great Transformation, he said, "The common-sense attitude toward change was discarded in favor of a mystical readiness to accept the social consequences of economic improvement, whatever they might be. The elementary truths of political science and statecraft were first discredited, then forgotten." Really, you can see how some economists really oppose the current traditional economic thought. Milton Friedman, an American economist and advisor to President Ronald Reagan and British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. He acknowledged printing money could boost employment and growth, but only by deceiving people who thinking that there is economic growth. When the people discovered that, he described that they can be fooled again to maintain faster growth by printing even more money. The gains will be short-term, but all will be at the expense of accelerating inflation. Friedman's most important achievement that spread all over the globe is having the economic policy focus shift from ensuring that people had jobs even at the expense of inflation to ensuring the reduction of inflation even at the expense of jobs. Shocking, aren't they? Please let me know what are your impressions about them in the comments below. And until then, see you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.